A man walks into one of London's most exclusive safe deposit centers. He charms his way past security, acts calm and confident, and casually asks to rent a vault. Hours later, he's standing inside the building's core, surrounded by steel boxes filled with millions in cash, diamonds, and gold. He pulls out a handgun. The manager freezes. And in that moment, Valerio Vice realizes nobody is coming to stop him. This is the story of the Knightsbridge Safe Deposit Heist, the largest robbery in British history. July 12, 1987. Central London hums with slow Sunday traffic. Inside the Knightsbridge Safe Deposit Centre at 120 Knightsbridge, minutes from Harrods and surrounded by the wealthiest postcodes in Britain, business manager Parvez Latif is having a quiet day. The centre is a fortress built for London's elite. Businessmen, celebrities, Middle Eastern royalty, and anyone who needs absolute discretion. Inside are roughly 120 safe deposit boxes, each a steel sanctuary for valuables the owners don't want traced, taxed, or questioned. No records of contents, no paperwork, no oversight, perfect privacy. And that is exactly what attracted Valerio Vice. Vice was 32, Italian by birth, international by criminal resume. He had committed more than 50 armed robberies across Italy before fleeing to London in 1986 to escape a 14-year prison sentence. Handsome, charismatic, and ruthlessly intelligent, Vici didn't look like a thug. He looked like money. He drove a Ferrari Testarossa, wore Armani suits, and dated a former Miss Venezuela. But beneath the luxury was a cold, calculating professional who had been planning his masterpiece for months. Weeks earlier, he rented box number 421, paying the annual fee without hesitation. He visited the facility multiple times, studying routines, counting cameras, and noting shift changes. He learned Sundays were quieter, fewer staff, fewer customers, and most importantly, the vault area was isolated from the street-level entrance. The Knightsbridge Safe Deposit Centre had one fatal flaw. Anyone who rented a box was allowed private access to the vault room. Once buzzed inside, they could stay as long as they wanted, completely unsupervised. A premium privacy perk that Vici saw as an open door. He assembled a crew of 5 men, each chosen for a specific skill. There was no doubt who was in charge. Vici was the architect, the strategist, the closer. His partners were there for muscle and logistics, competent but expendable. The plan was bold and deceptively simple. Vici would enter as a legitimate customer. Once inside the vault area, he'd pull a gun, take control of the manager, and then open the fire exit door to let his crew inside. They would drill the boxes, load the loot, and disappear before police even knew a crime was happening. On paper, it looked flawless. Around 1:30 p.m. that Sunday, Valerio Vice walked into 120 Knightsbridge wearing an expensive suit and carrying a leather briefcase. Calm, polite, completely convincing. "I'd like access to my box," he said to manager Parvez Latif. Latif nodded. Routine. Normal. Vice signed in, showed his key, and was buzzed through the secure door leading down toward the vault. The heavy door clicked shut behind him. He was in. He walked down the corridor into the vault room, a rectangular chamber lined from floor to ceiling with numbered steel boxes. The air was cool and silent. He moved to box 421, inserted his key, and opened it. Empty. He had never placed anything inside. Then he reached into his briefcase and pulled out a .357 Magnum revolver. A moment later, he walked calmly back upstairs. Parvez Latif looked up from his desk and froze. Vichy was pointing the gun directly at him. "Don't move, don't speak. Do exactly what I say." Latif felt every drop of blood drain from his body. There was no alarm within reach, no panic button. The police station was blocks away, and the thick concrete walls meant shouting was useless. Vichy's voice stayed calm, almost friendly. "We're going to have a very easy day, if you cooperate." Within minutes, Vichy had cable-tied Latif's hands and radioed his crew. The fire exit door, designed to open freely from the inside, clicked open. 5 men entered carrying duffel bags, sledgehammers, drills, and cutting torches. They locked the main entrance, pulled the blinds, placed a closed sign on the door. And then they went to work. The vault area turned into a workshop of systematic destruction. Safe deposit boxes were never designed to withstand a determined attack from people who had unlimited time and no fear of being discovered. Vichy's crew moved methodically down the rows, drilling, prying, smashing. Box after box surrendered its secrets. Cash spilled out first. Stacks of British pounds, US dollars, and Swiss francs bundled tight and vacuum sealed. Jewelry followed. Diamond necklaces, Rolex watches, emerald rings, and gold chains thick as rope. There were documents too, bearer bonds, stock certificates, and passports under fake names. Gold bars stamped with Swiss hallmarks, coins dating back to ancient Rome. And everywhere in the room, the sharp smell of metal and burnt steel as cutting torches chewed through the locks. The crew worked for nearly 2 hours, filling duffel bags until they bulged and could barely zip shut. Vichy kept Latif and a security guard tied up in the office, checking on them from time to time with the casual menace of a man who knew he was fully in control. "You're doing great," he'd tell Latif. "Just stay calm. We'll be gone soon." But Vichy wasn't simply calm. He was enjoying himself. To him, this wasn't just a robbery. It was performance art. It was the score he believed would set him up for the rest of his life. Around 3:30 p.m., something unexpected happened. Another customer arrived at the front entrance, a regular client who had scheduled time to access their box that afternoon. The crew froze. Vichy made a decision on the spot. They would let the customer in, take them hostage, and keep working. Fleeing with only half the vault opened wasn't acceptable, not when dozens of untouched boxes were still waiting. The customer was buzzed in, immediately restrained, and added to the growing line of hostages. Latif, the security guard, and now this unlucky visitor, all tied up, all terrified, all silently praying the day didn't turn violent. But the interruption cost precious time, and time was the one resource Vichy couldn't afford to lose. By 4 p.m., the crew had cracked roughly 60 boxes. They had filled multiple duffel bags with an estimated 60 million pounds in valuables, roughly 86 million in today's currency, or about 110 million US dollars. Finally, Vichy called it. "We're done. Let's move." The men loaded the heavy bags into a white Ford Transit van parked in the alley behind the building. Before leaving, Vichy took one last look at the vault, a ransacked cathedral of wealth, with steel boxes hanging open like broken teeth. He turned to Latif. "Count to 1,000 before you move. If you call the police before then, we'll know, and we'll come back." Then he was gone. The van slipped into London traffic and vanished. Latif waited 30 seconds before cutting himself free and dialing 999. Detective Inspector Ronald Crouch of Scotland Yard arrived within 40 minutes. What he found stunned him. The vault looked like a war zone, 60 boxes destroyed, metal debris scattered everywhere, and the smell of burnt steel still hanging in the air. The victims were shaken but physically unharmed, describing a crew that had operated with calm, almost military precision. But what struck Crouch most was the scale. This was no smash and grab. This was planned, professional, and executed with chilling efficiency. The problem was simple. Nobody knew exactly what had been stolen. Safe deposit centers don't keep records of contents. That's the entire business model. Owners pay for anonymity, which meant Scotland Yard had to rely on people voluntarily reporting their losses, and many wouldn't. Why? Because a significant number of those boxes contained wealth that didn't officially exist. Unreported income, gray market profits, assets hidden from spouses or from the tax authority. Conservative estimates suggested a haul of £30 million. Optimistic estimates doubled it to £60 million. The true figure would never be known. What Crouch did know was this. It was now the largest robbery in British history, surpassing even the infamous Brinks-Mat gold bullion heist of 1983. And the robbers had a massive head start. Scotland Yard formed a task force. They interviewed victims, reviewed street-level security footage, and canvassed for witnesses. It was textbook police work, thorough, methodical, and completely fruitless at first. The crew had been careful. Gloves, no fingerprints, plain clothing. The getaway van was found abandoned and torched in South London, erasing almost all forensic evidence. But Vichay had made one critical mistake. He wore gloves during the robbery, but weeks earlier, during his reconnaissance visits, he hadn't. His fingerprint was sitting on the rental agreement for Box 421. Detective Crouch ran the print through Interpol, and suddenly they had a name: Valerio Vichay, Italian national, wanted fugitive, known to be living in London. The net was tightening. While Scotland Yard hunted him, Vichy was living large. The robbery had given him millions, and he wasn't shy about spending it. He bought property, upgraded his Ferrari collection, threw parties in exclusive clubs. His girlfriend, the former Miss Venezuela, enjoyed a sudden wave of expensive gifts. But Vichay made another mistake, one driven entirely by arrogance. He bragged. In London's criminal underworld, word travels fast. And Vichay, flush with money and pride, started talking, showing off, making himself memorable. Informants began feeding details to Scotland Yard. Associates, nervous about the growing attention, stepped back. Some cooperated with police to save themselves. The walls were closing in, but Vichay didn't see it. Or maybe he refused to see it. He believed he had pulled off the impossible. He thought he was untouchable, until he wasn't. October 26, 1987, just over 3 months after the heist. Vichay was driving his Ferrari Testarossa through London when police vehicles suddenly boxed him in. Armed officers surrounded the car, weapons drawn, forming a wall of firepower around him. Vichay could have run, he could have fought. But looking at the guns pointed directly at him, he made the only smart choice. He raised his hands. "All right," he said, "you got me." In the trunk of the Ferrari, police found multiple passports under different names, large amounts of cash, and several pieces of jewelry traced directly back to the Knightsbridge heist. Inside his apartment, they discovered even more stolen valuables, along with detailed notes outlining the entire robbery. Vichay had essentially documented his own masterpiece. Over the next several weeks, police arrested the remaining members of the crew. Some cooperated right away. Others held out until the evidence was too overwhelming to deny. But one by one, they all fell. In total, investigators recovered roughly £10 million in stolen goods, only a fraction of the full amount. The rest was gone forever, laundered through international channels or hidden in places that would never be found. Vicey's trial began in 1988. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence: fingerprints, witness testimony, recovered loot, and most damning of all, Vicey's own arrogance. His defense was almost non-existent. The case was airtight. In July 1988, Valerio Vicey was convicted of robbery and sentenced to 22 years in prison. His crew received similar sentences. The judge noted that while no one had been physically harmed, the sheer scale and audacity of the crime demanded serious consequences. Vicey showed almost no emotion. He had known the risks. He had played the game, and he had lost. He was sent to maximum security. But prison didn't humble him. It enraged him. He attempted multiple escapes. The first involved a rope made from bedsheets. The second involved bribed guards and detailed planning. All of them failed. Inside prison, Vicey became a celebrity. Other inmates admired him for the boldness of the Knightsbridge job. Guards watched him constantly, knowing he would exploit any weakness he found. Years passed. His appeals were denied. Former crew members, hoping for reduced sentences, testified further against him. The woman he loved left him, and Vicey was left with nothing but time. Time to think about where everything had gone wrong. In 1999, after serving 11 years, he was transferred to an Italian prison to complete his sentence. Italy's laws offered the possibility of parole, and Vicey immediately worked toward release. He became a model prisoner. He attended rehabilitation programs. He expressed remorse, whether sincere or calculated, no one could say. In April 2000, he was granted day release through a work release program. He was allowed supervised outings, a final step before full parole. Freedom was close. After 13 years behind bars, Vicey could almost taste it. But on April 19, 2000, during a day release in Parma, Italy, everything went catastrophically wrong. Vicey was traveling with a police escort when the car was pulled over for a routine traffic stop. Accounts differ about what happened next. Some say he panicked. Others believe he saw a chance to escape. What is certain is this: Vicey grabbed the escorting officer's gun. A struggle followed. Shots were fired. Vicey ran. Police backup arrived within minutes. They found him hiding in a nearby yard, armed, desperate, and refusing to surrender. Officers ordered him to drop the weapon. Instead, Vicey raised it. Police opened fire. 11 rounds struck him. Valerio Vicey, the mastermind of Britain's greatest robbery, died in a pool of blood on Italian pavement. He was 46 years old. The Knightsbridge Safe Deposit Heist remains one of the most audacious crimes in British history. £60 million stolen in a single afternoon. 2 hours of unchallenged access to London's wealthiest secrets. A crew that almost walked away clean. Almost. Vicey's downfall wasn't the plan. It was his ego. The fingerprint he left during reconnaissance. The bragging afterward. The refusal to disappear when he had the chance. He was brilliant, but he couldn't resist being seen. Most of the stolen wealth was never recovered. Millions in cash, jewelry, and gold disappeared into the criminal underworld, laundered through channels still unknown. Some victims never reported their losses, choosing silence over revealing what they had hidden. The Knightsbridge Safe Deposit Center closed permanently after the robbery. The building still stands, but the business of quiet, no-questions-asked wealth storage died that Sunday afternoon. And here's what still haunts investigators. they will never know the true scale of what was taken. Every estimate is a guess. Every recovery is incomplete. Vice carried those secrets to his grave, and the vault's other secrets were buried with the clients who stayed silent. In the end, Vice got everything he wanted: infamy, wealth, the perfect crime, and lost it all to the one thing he couldn't control: his own pride. The man who robbed London's elite couldn't rob himself of his ego, and that is what killed him.